Getting the smile and confidence you've been dreaming about, all from the comfort of your home, isn't a total mystery with Bite clear aligners. Just don't be surprised if all your friends start asking, "What's your secret?" Begin by ordering your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95. Bite clear aligners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces, plus they offer flexible financing, accept eligible insurance, and you can pay with your HSA FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
And welcome back to Little Cuts, our weekly mini-sode where we dig into the things that we've been watching recently. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth. This week,
Strike a pose.
We're chatting about We're chatting about King of the Monsters, the most Ari Aster movie not directed by Ari Aster. Melodrama perfection and terrifying Australian found footage.
Yes, and just an announcement, because I guess this is our second December episode, isn't it? But Patreon is back open, so if you want to help support us, you can now. We've been talking about it, even though we've had it locked down, because it's been hard to get back into the swing of things with schedules and stuff, but we are back. You could be watching our beautiful faces right now, and see that I am actually trying to Vogue, and I did not get that gene.
See Mary Beth's really cool shirt.
It is a really cool shirt.
She's a big, muscly anime girl.
Can you scooch over?
She's really cute.
I can't see you.
Oh yeah, sorry.
She is really cute.
And it says Big Milk.
Big Milk. As the most anime thing.
Yep. It's just this incredible artist, original content, and I love her dearly because she just makes weird giant anime chicks that are really muscular, and it's very good.
Hell yeah. You are giving comfy vibes right now, I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah, rocking my beanie, my kafaya, Free Palestine, and yeah. So, yeah, we're cozy, we're comfy, it's cold, I'm tired, I just want to drink soup. So
I don't blame you at all.
It's soup season, bitch.
Soup season. It's always soup season for me, though. I love soup. I will have soup.
Yeah, it's same, but it's now I can make it more often because it's Steve will eat it, and he's like, "Oh, yeah. It's an appropriate time to eat soup," and I'm like, "It's always an appropriate time to eat soup."
Always.
I love soup. Anyway,
all right. So let's start off with the King of the Monsters. What did we both watch?
So this week it's gonna be it sounds like we didn't watch a lot, but we just watched a lot of the same stuff this week. So we're gonna talk a little bit longer about the things we both saw. We saw Godzilla Minus One.
Hell yeah, we did.
Boy, oh boy. Boy, 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 oh boy. I love Godzilla so much. And I know I was worried about the hype because I was like, there's no way. Blown away. I cried in this movie. I sobbed. So,
without spoiling, what part, ish, did you...
Yeah, so for those of you unfamiliar with Godzilla, you can see this movie. This is a kind of a different, you don't need to know about Godzilla lore to see this if you are interested in this movie. But Godzilla Minus One, so this takes place in 1945, final day. It starts in the final days of World War II in Japan, and then it takes place in the years immediately after, where Tokyo is trying to rebuild. It's a very fascinating movie to watch right now. Mm. While the context of why Tokyo is firebombed are very different in terms of why that happened, it is just a very interesting movie to watch now, and watching a population who were used basically as collateral damage for their government are trying to rebuild post-disaster. And then on top of that, Godzilla comes in and rocks everyone's shit. And and our focus is this kamikaze pilot who is a failed kamikaze pilot, which is incredibly dishonorable. He choked, which, he didn't want to kill himself for his country. And
Novel
this movie
concept.
grapples with this a lot in a really amazing way. Like, this is a movie that is grappling with Japan's past and how Japan has treated human beings like fodder. And it's this really poignant story about this guy's PTSD and linked to Godzilla and him trying to rebuild a family. And in the midst of all this, Godzilla is coming and destroying Tokyo and what everyone has repaired. And it's like kind of the triumph of the human spirit. And it's like, it's cheesy if you look at it on paper, it sounds very cheesy. But this is such an incredibly heartfelt movie. And I also think like Godzilla has to be a little bit cheesy and melodramatic. Like, I think that's just inherent to like Godzilla. But this movie, I think, has like the comparison a lot of Shin Godzilla, which was Hideki Anno from 2016. And
which I still
these movies are very different. These two movies are very different. In a good way. And I think there's a lot of comparison because those are the two most recent, like, Japanese Godzilla movies that I think are much better than the American ones. No shade to the American ones. I think they have their merit, but they're more campy, which is fine. But I like these serious takes on Godzilla. And this one was very much about, like, brotherhood and friendship in a way that I was obsessed with. Like, I was obsessed with the camaraderie between these men and not having it be, and like looking at men and as friends and like the power of friendship. And we don't get a lot of that with like male friendship and positive male relationships. And this movie like delivers that in a really awesome way. And also just like this Godzilla is scary as shit. Like, I was scared in this movie of Godzilla.
Yep.
And this design is incredible. They take a lot from the Heisei era, I believe it is, which is, there's like different eras of Godzilla. Yeah, the Heisei era, which was like in the 80s. And that, like, his eyes, like the way his eyes look, like very colorful and big, like that's pulling from that era of Godzilla. And they just make him so scary. Like, his laser is like his atomic breath, which is always my favorite to see how people interpret Godzilla's atomic breath, because that's like the iconic thing. Insane in here. And it's just like, you can feel the stakes in this movie so well, and how scary Godzilla is and how like much of a threat he is. And it rocked. It fucking rocked.
Yeah. So in chat, Kate is saying that this was her real, in quotations, Godzilla movie, because for her, the American ones don't count. And this is the kind of similar to me. I think I have seen the original Godzilla when I was a kid, but I'm not, because I wasn't there like two cuts, like the American cut of the original Godzilla, and then or am I making this up?
No, there's two yeah, hold on a second.
But so I think I had seen the original one when I was a kid, but I might not have seen all of it. And I've never really been like a big Godzilla person. I really hated the Matthew Broderick one from early 2000s, late 90s. I can't remember what year that one came out. It might have been 99 because everything seemed to come out that year. And I didn't care for that one. I appreciated the size and the way that Gareth Evans filmed the 2014 Godzilla, because he really, I think, focused on a human level view of Godzilla, but the movie as a whole didn't 100% work for me. 1998, Kate says. Yep. Matthew Broderick, 1998. Okay, that makes sense. But like, I've never been a huge fan, but this year has been like a year that I've been like gung-ho Godzilla. Like, I really like Legacy of Monster, which is only tangentially related to Godzilla.
It's good. I started it.
Did you?
Oh, I love it. I'm so into it.
And so pulpy.
I'm not caught up, but we started watching it. It's so pulpy and fun. Like, It feels like it's like it's India, like you said, it's Indiana Jones with monsters. Like, I'm very into it. It's so fun.
It's so fun. And so I watched that, and then I was like, I'm very excited to see Godzilla Minus One, because the creature design looked fantastic. I loved the shots I was seeing. So I was very excited, and this is I want to say this is my first like real Godzilla movie as well, as someone that can appreciate the film. And I really enjoyed this one. I didn't get as like in my feels as a lot of people online did. I didn't cry in this movie. But it still like was really working for me with the way in which it was tackling the giant scar that World War II has left in Japan. But I appreciated that it was focusing on the fact that these people were just kind of left aside and used as pawns for for the government, really. And this movie does a lot of dissection in that regard. And I really appreciated that. I thought it was very interesting, and I thought it was tackling things, because there's been a lot of movies that are about World War II, and I thought this was an interesting way to take it, in a way that is both anti-establishment, but also about the strain that this war has left on people, and the fact that it's really hard to move on from that. And I like the way that Godzilla represented that kind of trauma that continued to destroy and kind of metaphorically destroy, the conscious lives of the Japanese people. Yeah. And so I really like that. And I love some of the little details, like the fact that when Godzilla would shoot the atomic breath, it was like singeing his face. Like it shows the raw power of his breath in a way that I don't think I've seen as awe-inspiring as I have in other Godzilla movies.
You need to watch Shin Godzilla.
I know I do. I really do. I really want to watch that.
It's very different, but you'll have it. It's a pretty big. Just watch it.
I really need
the
to.
Atomic Breath.
I want to watch it. It just it's this is like this.
I know.
As what always happens with me, the times when I want to hyperfixate on something is when like there's a million things pulling at my attention, like FYC screeners and all that kind of stuff. So like I have not had a chance to sit down and watch it, but I am dying to see it now.
Godzilla Minus One and Shin Godzilla are very, very, very good interpretations of Godzilla. And I think the reason is because they're Japanese. I think Godzilla is such a uniquely Japanese story. Mm-hmm. It's all about Japan trying to cope with the trauma of the nuclear bomb. Yeah. And nuclear testing, and how that affected the citizens of Japan, and how, Japan kind of put themselves in that situation with World War II. And it's complicated. And I don't think you can have Godzilla. And look, I get it. A lot of Godzilla later on is silly, but it's still that core of and a lot of these movies do kind of poke fun at Shin Godzilla's full-on satire of bureaucracy in Japan and how that they don't care about the citizens. Japan, it's just Godzilla is just such a Japanese thing that it's hard to translate here, to the States. It doesn't have, the stakes aren't as high. Right. I know that, and if you're not a Godzilla person, that might sound silly. It's oh, well, they're monsters, destroying stuff. But it's that linking to the nuclear power and how Godzilla is such a symbol of Japanese trauma, kind of, if you really want to get serious about it. It's a massive symbol for a national trauma. So when you don't have that same national trauma, it just doesn't have as much of an impact the Cloverfield monster does, because that's so 9/11, to have a very, very not different, but the kind of only comparison I can currently draw is these monsters are so conjuring of these certain images, and here with Godzilla, it's still conjuring that image, but that image that we're familiar with without the cultural context. It's very interesting.
Well, and I was immediately, as you were talking, I was trying to think what would be an American, and I wasn't even thinking about Cloverfield, which absolutely 100% a very American monster. But then I was also thinking, taking it back to not giant monsters, but the monsters in Texas Chainsaw Massacre is an inherently United States feel. Yes, there are cannibals. We can do stuff about cannibalism. We can do stuff about horrific, that kind of stuff. But what Texas Chainsaw Massacre is about is an inherently American movie. And so I think that there is definitely, there's a cultural ownership to these different kinds of creatures that, when other people, they might get the spectacle, they might get the effects, they might get the creature, they might get the human level, but they're not going to be able to tell the same kind of story. So I agree 100%.
That's not to say that I'm not excited for Godzilla X Kong, which is a hilarious title. Look, I know that I'm going to get stoned and see it in the movie theater. And it's like going to be it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
It looks like they might be going in like a sillier direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the silly Godzilla movies. So, but I don't know if they know they're silly is my kind of concern. You know what I mean? Like, It's silly, but do they know it's silly?
But do they know? Right.
And like that is what's going to make or break this movie.
I agree.
Is if they are leaning into the silly.
They got to embrace it.
And I hope they do, because you don't show me that a giant ape in the middle of Hollow Earth has a revenge trajectory and not realize that your movie is fucking silly and is campy. You know what I mean? And if you being like studios, I think Adam Wingard is smarter than that, but you never know with studios, you know what I mean? Yep. So I'm just very curious. But so if you're listening to this, Kate, your message reminds me, if you're listening to this on Friday, December 8th, they've extended a week. Toho has extended Godzilla Minus One's theatrical run because of how well it's done in theaters in the States. So see it. Go see it in theaters. If Godzilla movies are meant to be seen in theaters, there's a scene that's like a Jaws is like Jaws, but with fucking Godzilla. Like a lot of this movie feels like an homage to Jaws.
Yes,
it's a Jaws movie.
This is totally Jaws.
It's a Jaws movie. It's Jaws, but like not in like a cheesy way, and like a really amazing like homage to Jaws, and like how no one has used a Godzilla chase scene in a boat before is wild to me. It's so good. And like this is what I think I love about this movie too. I'm sorry, I keep going back to it. They're always in close proximity, Godzilla. He's not far away. Like they're always like up in his shit, and I feel like that raises the stakes even more. Like you can really feel like he's there. Right. And because a lot of the time they keep them at a distance. Like, oh, there's a big scary monster. Look how big they are. But here they're not afraid to get up close, and I love that because that gives you even more of a sense of how big this creature is compared to like a boat and a person.
Yeah. I agree.
So go see it, guys. Like, it's so good. You don't have to be a Godzilla person to enjoy it.
Nope. I'm not.
Yeah. It's a little cheesy, but that's fine because it's Godzilla. It's the triumph of the human spirit. Like, it's good. Go see it in theaters. Please and thank you. Sleeper hit of one of the best movies of the year coming in. Sweeping in. Carter! Oh my god, Carter! Did you see it in Japan? Because Steve and I were going to see it in Japan, but we could not find any place that had English subtitles. And,
Moving
seats? Holy shit. But we were going to see it in Japan, but we couldn't find anything that had, like, subtitles. And I'm really glad we didn't just do it, because we would have missed out a lot of important context if we, like, had not had the subtitles. So as much as it would have been cool to see it in Japan, I think it was the move to not just see it. Godzilla breath? Oh, shit, that's cool.
Godzilla breath with water spraying, Carter says. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. So Renaissance, the Beyonce movie, was next to my theater, and it was shaking my seat. So that was kind of, like, 4D. I was like, is there an earthquake going on? No, it was fucking Beyonce. And like the people dancing, I was like, I just want to watch my Godzilla movie in peace. But anyway, see Godzilla Minus One. It's really fucking good, and more movies like this should be made. This was made for $15 million, apparently, which is very expensive in Japan. But here, that ain't shit. So support movies like that.
Hell yeah.
Even that's not even an indie, but I don't know. What does indie even fucking mean anymore? Anyway, that's a discussion for another time.
It really is.
But what I want to hear about is the most Ari Aster movie not directed by Ari Aster. And that could mean like 65 different things. So I'm just like, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Well, this is a movie that apparently, according to the internet, Ari Aster almost directed, but he ended up producing it instead. And it is, as Kate mentions in chat, yes.
Dream scenario.
Which is like, okay, so Nicolas Cage is stunning in this movie.
He is so fucking good in this movie.
I loved him in this movie. Although I will say that it was wigging me out because he looked the spitting image of my father in like early, like 20 years younger than my dad is right now. But like my dad had that hairstyle. He wore the glasses. He looked just like my dad, and it was wigging me out to the point that I sent a picture to my brother and was like, who is this? And he's like, oh my God, is that dad? Like it looks like him. It was wigging me out.
Oh, that's fucking wild.
But Dream Scenario, in case you're not familiar with it, listeners, is the movie Dream Scenario is the movie. It is about Nicolas Cage's Paul Matthews, who is an evolutionary biology instructor at a school. And when the movie opens, his daughter is telling him about this weird dream she had about him, where she was like floating up into the sky and he was just standing there and not doing anything to help. And he's like, well, that's weird. I hope you don't think of that of me in real life. And he starts going on his way at school, and people just start staring at him weird. There's whispering in class. And he comes to find out that other people are dreaming about him. People he doesn't really know. And then it starts to like progress, and he becomes sort of a meme where people have like, they think they know him because they are seeing him in his dreams, and he's always just sort of standing there nonchalantly watching things occur. And as he starts to like gain influence in terms of people wanting to photograph him, of wanting to film him and put him on social media, the dreams start to take kind of a sinister turn, and it upsets his entire life. And that's putting it mildly. Obviously, like, this was giving me Nightmare on Elm Street vibes, to the point that, of course, the film even mentions those vibes. And there's the image floating around the internet of him wearing this glove with, like, knives on it. So, like, the film is very much aware of what we're playing with. But it does so in such an intriguing way that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the dream sequences, but I also enjoyed what it was sort of doing in terms of like how people don't really own themselves once they get on the internet, because he doesn't have any control over how people perceive him, and it just starts to spiral out of control. And I thought that was really fascinating. I will say there's some things in the third act where like it tries to add in some like capitalism things, and I'm like, that it felt like a very small detour that was unappetizing and not fully explored in a way, which would have led to an additional movie almost with what they could have done with it. But that aside, I thought this was a really fascinating look at a trajectory of someone that becomes a meme, or that becomes part of our cultural landscape in ways that he can't control. And I thought it was really interesting in that regard.
Yeah, I really like this movie. I don't like how it ends, and I think that they let him off a little bit too easy. I think
absolutely.
there's a little bit too like, see what happens when a white man is canceled, like you ruin his life. And like it's more nuanced than that, obviously. Like I know, and it's having a lot of really interesting conversations. It's Christopher Borgli is the director.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen Sick of Myself, which is his other movie that everyone is like, people have seen, but I know people really like it. And like, this is his sense of humor, very like dry, satirical, like humans are fucking wild in their behavior and how they act, and in like in these like, wild scenarios. And I do think they handle it really well. There's just like some parts of it where I'm just like, I don't know. I think we're letting this dude off a little easy. I think we're being a little like, I don't think I'm in the mood to be sympathetic towards a man like that sympathetic. I don't know. Like, that's just my experience with it. And I think like my experience with it was a little bit like, okay, I like it, but I'm not quite sure what this movie is trying to say. And that's kind of where I was at with it for a bit.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't really get that. Like, there's a couple moments that I was like, I'm not sure if that's what you want to say. But like, for the most part, I thought it was fascinating to see sort of the way in which, I mean, it's if you live long enough, you're going to find yourself become the villain, right? And so he starts off being just an evolutionary professor. Like, there's nothing to him. He is
Yeah.
someone that fades in the crowd, and then he becomes internet famous, and then it just sort of charts the trajectory of his eventual downfall. And I thought that was interesting. But also,
it absolutely is.
in terms
yeah,
of
like I don't.
just in terms of the way that Nicolas Cage has always like said how the memification of him online. And so like I saw that in here too, of like he has no control over any of his branding, and the things that he wants to talk about, no one wants to talk about because they're more interested in these little snippets of social media posts. And so I thought there was some interesting parallels to the way in which Nicolas Cage's life as an actor has played out.
Absolutely. And like by no means do I think it's a bad movie. I think there's actually a lot of really smart things being said about like how we view people and how like it spirals out of control and what that means. I think just the ending was it's another one of those cases of like you should have just ended it early.
Yep.
Like
I don't think he knew how to end it.
Yeah, like it just the ending I was like, I don't know. I don't think he needed to do all that. I think it was fine I think it was fine without that last like 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Like it's more poignant that way. But it felt like studio notes. I don't know if that's true or not, but it also kind of felt a little bit like.
And Carter in chat says Sick of Myself is amazing. I really want to see Sick of Myself. I've never seen it, but I've heard really good things. And after watching this one, it moved up in my list of things I need to
He's got a really good sense of humor. Like he's got a very keen, weird sense of humor. And I love it though. It's very European. Very European.
So twisted and dark. Ooh, that's right up my alley.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen it, but I know about it, and it's fucking weird. So
yeah. Well, I just realized that we all both have seen all the movies we're talking about tonight. So let's talk about melodrama perfection. I hear we're out of hot dogs.
May December by Todd Haynes. Don't listen to the weird memes and all the weird discourse on the fucking internet. This is what happens when these movies are accessible to everybody. That sounds terrible and elitist, but I'm going to say it.
There's something to that, unfortunately.
But this, regardless of everything you've seen on the internet, May December is one of the most nauseating movies I've ever seen, and I love that. It is Todd Haynes at, like, his best. I just, like... the fact that it's getting treated the way it's getting treated is like really frustrating to me because it's so much more complicated in what it's doing and how it's like constructing an art of. Anyway, let's talk about what it's about first. Sorry, I'm getting into my feelings about the May December discourse on the fucking internet because like I think this is an incredible movie and a very important movie, and I think that it's not. The way it's being treated, I'm glad it's getting all the attention, but I don't think it like gets to the core of how important this story is and how it like the telling of it is actually pretty important for quite a few reasons.
In a way, like not to a much more important degree, but in a way, the discourse about this movie is sort of like what happens to Nicolas Cage's character in. Jesus Christ!
Ugh, my brain is broken, and
because you're right. This movie, I think, is getting. I think they're taking parts of this movie out there in discussion and not fully understanding what Todd Haynes is trying to do here. But basically, like, just so in case you're not familiar with it, because the title is very mercurial. It doesn't really tell you what it's about. And it's loosely inspired by the Mary Kay Letourneau story, who Mary Kay Letourneau was a woman who was a teacher, and she raped her student, ended up getting pregnant with her student's baby, went to jail, got out of jail, went back into jail, pregnant with baby number 2, and eventually the two married after she got out of prison. And so this movie is sort of looking at this character established with her husband years later, and Natalie Portman's character is an actress that's coming in to kind of do character study work because she's going to be basically playing this woman in a movie. And it goes from there. But I'm curious, what did you think about this one, Mary Beth?
I loved it.
Yeah.
made me so upset. And I mean that like in a way that like, holy shit. I love Todd Haynes. I love Velvet Goldmine is an incredible film. And so I love, and obviously I love Carol, but like Velvet Goldmine is such a good study of an ex. Have you seen Velvet Goldmine?
Oh yeah.
So I think just Todd Haynes is just so good at character studies and creating these, well, not, it's not because he didn't write this, but like working with the writer and like picking these stories that tell you all about these weird people. And like he knows how to like tell these fucking wild stories about everyday people. And this is such an interesting look. One, I'm really glad it exists because, again, people don't think women can be rapists and don't think women are capable of these things. And I think stories like this are devastatingly important in terms of just looking at what grooming looks like and how it is not just men doing it to women. So that's really important to see. But I also love how he exposes true crime and like our own like obsession with true crime and our desire to kind of get into these details and understand these people and then realize like, oh no, these people are like deeply fucked up. Like this is not a fun thing to read, and like the tabloid stuff was fun, but when you meet them, like you are deeply disturbed at what this family is. Charles Melton as the grown boy, y'all, this kid. And he's not a kid, but just like he plays an adult who is still a kid, and everything about him, like awards. Like I the way that he is able to portray a 33-year-old man who never grew up and is still stuck in childhood, but is also a parent.
13-year-old man
like,
stuck in a 13-year-old child stuck in a man's body.
It is, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it because it's just like so fucked up to watch because you are literally watching this guy process his entire life's worth of trauma, and he does it so beautifully, but it's really hard to watch.
It really is.
But this movie's also funny in a way too, because Natalie Portman's character is like darkly comedic and like how serious she's taking this role when like they kind of telegraph to you that she's maybe not the best actress and that like she's over blowing her talents to like make herself feel important. And so like there's a dark comedy there too with like an overinflated sense of self and like taking it too seriously. And there's just a lot of really complicated things going on.
And it's also a satire
in this movie that are
these...
so cool. Yeah.
And it's a satire of these types of true crime, these types of like overwrought, melodramatic. I mean, I hate to use the word Lifetime because that feels disparaging, but like that type of film where it's like the quick zooms that we have here with the over the top score is just perfection. And I think that might be where like people are struggling because the film doesn't really give you anything to latch onto. We have satire, which is very broad humor that we're seeing here with like the camera zooms and the overwrought score and some of the things like the fact that we're zooming in on Julianne Moore and it seems like it's going to be a serious moment and she's like, I don't think we have enough hot dogs, and then it cuts to the next scene and there is nothing but hot dogs, like it's
4 million hot dogs,
so many hot dogs. And so there's like that kind of comedy here, and then there's, as you mentioned, there's this dark comedy, pitch black dark comedy with Natalie Portman's character. And then there's Charles Melton's character that is just like so you just want to give him a giant hug and try to help him. And so there's like all these different things that it's really hard to kind of grab onto one thing. And I think that's why people are calling it campy. I don't see any camp in this whatsoever. Melodrama, satire, yes, but not camp.
So thank you for saying this because I was going to bring this up because I think people conflate melodrama and camp a lot.
Absolutely.
Because I do think that they can overlap, but
Absolutely.
They are very different.
Yes.
This is trying to, it's using melodrama and like expectations, a little bit of camp aesthetics to draw your eye to the fact that this is all just a fucked up artifice. Mm-hmm. And everything is a facade. And the music, like, I love that the movie like constantly is destabilizing you about like what you're supposed to be feeling and thinking. And I love that because it's never letting you get comfortable and like your expectations. And I think that is so incredibly cool, and how that is navigating how we get so comfortable watching these tragedies on TV and watching them for entertainment and consuming them and just being like, oh, that's so fucked up and sad, and then turning it off and not realizing like these people have lives. And it's not even just lives, like they've got children. Yeah. Like they have, and the kids in this movie and the way they treat their mom versus their dad, talk about wanting, like there are scenes where Julianne Moore, the way she talks, because she plays like the rapist, the way she speaks to her fucking children about like, you're so brave for showing your arms like that. Comment. I was like, well, I have heard things like that before. But that's why it's like that mom. And someone made this comment online, and I cannot for the fucking life remember who tweeted it, but was like, nothing was more shocking when I started having white friends, like learning how much contempt white moms have for their daughters. And I'm like, and May December captures that so fucking well. It's so wild. That's May December. It's on Netflix. So if you want to experience one of the best movies of the year, but also one of the most heartbreaking, check it out on Netflix. And again, it is too complicated of a movie for this many people to have access to it. I'm so sorry to say that. I know that's so shitty, but this is not a movie to be memed. Netflix is memeing it. I mean, like, look, he's so hot. I'm like, Charles Milton is literally a fucking, like, sexual assault survivor, like, trapped in a I was just like, we can't meme this movie. And, like, I know that I shouldn't be complaining that art like this is getting attention, but sometimes attention is bad. Oh, God, I sound like such a dick. I'm sorry, but c'est la vie. But let's take a very different turn to talk about our found footage movie of the week, which is our terrifying found footage film from Australia that Terry watched for the first time. Terry, what did we watch?
We watched The Tunnel, which is an Australian movie from 2011. I believe, I know you know more about the history of it. I believe this one was just released onto BitTorrent. It was just like torrented.
So what? Yeah, so it was torrented, and they sold every frame of the movie to fund it, and then they just like released it. It was like prototype NFT. Okay. They sold every frame of the movie. Huh. Yeah.
That's weird.
And then they just like put it on BitTorrent, and then someone put it on YouTube, and that's the way it was out. For ever until like I think either this year or like late last year.
Yeah, probably very recently.
It's very very recently, and it's because I watched a shitty version on YouTube, and like when I saw it at Unnamed Footage Festival, like on the big screen, I was like, well, that makes a difference.
Yeah, and I really wish I could have stayed for it. I wanted to watch that and the documentary of the making of this, which I guess the Umbrella Blu-ray copy of this movie, which is all region, has that documentary on it, and I really wanted to order that Blu-ray to watch it. But okay, so The Tunnel is about it's presented as a documentary-ish about an investigative journalist who has there's a cover-up story that is going on because Australia has planned at one point to use abandoned train tunnels deep within the heart of Sydney to like become a water recycling thing to help solve drought and climate change issues for Australia. And then it just doesn't seem to go anywhere. And so she's like investigating it. She's hearing reports of like weird things happening in the tunnels. And so she gets her team to go down into the tunnels, the titular tunnel, and figure out what is going on. And then mayhem ensues.
What'd you think?
I really liked it. I want that out here first. But what I did realize is I'm not sure that this format works for me.
Really? Okay.
The format,
like the pseudo documentary framing, like with Hell House and like Mungo.
Yes and no. So I don't, because like I was trying to figure out what about it, and I think it's because this is not a documentary about like, hey, we found this footage and we're making like, we're trying to investigate it. It is like, we know that these two people survived, and that really cut the tension for me, because I immediately knew that those two were going to survive. The other two that hadn't shown up in the documentary were probably dead. And so I think the fact that we are following this woman and she is relating the facts of it gives me more of a distance than some found footage movies make me have. Does that make sense? Like, I felt more distant
I get that.
to this.
Yeah. That's fair. Okay. Yeah.
And so that aspect of it was not jiving for me very well.
Okay.
But I think that's just a structural thing that I just don't think it works for me, because my mind is too much on the plot. And I'm like to the point where I'm like, okay, I know these two are going to survive. I know the other two aren't. Let's get to that. Instead of just appreciating what was in front of me. That said, the imagery in this movie is fucked once we get into it is basically a found footage like The Descent with this weird ass creature that is phenomenal. I gasped and jumped a number of times in this, and I am kicking myself for not seeing it in a movie theater, because I think that would have really enriched the experience even more than it was.
I'm sorry, it does. It makes it a lot easier to see like what's happening. And like more about what it looks like. You know, you still don't get like a clear view of it, but you kind of, yeah. Okay, well, I'm glad you liked it for the most part.
Oh, I did.
Because, yeah, because I think it's a really effective use of creatures in found footage.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people struggle with creatures in found footage with budgets.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are a lot of ways to do them really well. And this is an example of how you can do a really good monster low budget, because like this isn't like a crazy monster. You really don't see a lot of it. You just get more of a sense of its size and like kind of its face shape. But I think one of my favorite things about this movie is when, this isn't really a spoiler, when the monster picks up the camera and you get the monster POV, like the literal monster POV, and like you see like that like kickstarted something in my fucking brain of just like that was another like pivotal found footage moment for me, of being like the ways in which when you know who's holding the camera, when that changes, it feels so violating. And especially when it's the bad guy that, you know, like we're not supposed to like be seeing from their perspective, and like you are literally becoming a monster. You're like, oh my god, what the fuck? And you don't really see that in found footage a lot, because a lot of it is like you just want the people capturing it. And I think it does this really smart thing with having the monster pick up the camera. Yeah. And I think that is like, that paired with like, oh, Kate says, I was getting so mad at how the guys were treating their female team member. It's very Blair Witch Project, and how like the woman is to blame, and it's like, how dare you do this to us? And she's just like, babes, I didn't know this was down here. Like at some point you gotta like relax. But like some of the imagery in this also is fucking downright scary. Like in terms of finding weird rooms full of blood and like these just like really fucking weird images and sounds. And I think they use the setting so well. Effectively, yeah.
One of my favorite images in this movie is there's a security guard. I thought it was a little contrived that all of a sudden he's down in the area and like trying to lead them out. I was like, I don't like that 100%. But it didn't seem real to me. But then the fact that there's this moment where they re-find the security guard and his eyes have been ripped out and he is standing in water and it's so dark behind him, but you start to like see something forming in the darkness behind him.
Oh, it's so good.
And it reminds
ahead of its time. Hereditary, ahead of its time.
Well, it also reminded me of what was that? The La Possession de...
Oh, the Possession de Altair, 1974.
Yes,
Possession de Altair.
Like there's a sequence in that too that involves darkness and things being barely perceptible in the darkness that was here as well. And I love moments like that. It was very effective, very creepy, very scary. Really enjoyed that part of the film. 100%.
Yeah. It's a good one. And I'm really glad that it's on Tubi now and there's like an actual version of it, not just like a ripped shitty copy on YouTube or like other sites. That's how I found it.
There's a good quality
it's fun.
On it too.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, like, I've been doing a lot of thinking about archiving recently, and so it's really interesting to see, like, these movies, how they were released, and then, like, the way they're getting resurrected, I think is really interesting. And, like, who chooses what gets resurrected. Anyway, I've been in my feelings a lot about archival work. But yeah, that does it for this week. I love that we watched literally all of the same movies.
I know.
I didn't watch Dream Scenario this week, but I did see it, so but we're wrapping that up for today. But then, so what? How are we continuing our found footage series, Terry?
So next week it's one that we both have seen, but I have not seen it in a very long time. Not sure about Mary Beth, and I
haven't either. Yeah,
I've been wanting a reason to revisit it, and here we go. So we're gonna watch Troll Hunter. Troll Hunter? Is it Hunter or Hunters?
Yeah, Troll Hunter. Andre Overdahl's found footage movie. Our boy who did Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and Autopsy of Jane Doe. This is, I think, one of his first movies. A found footage, one of the only examples of found footage giant creature feature, and I love it for that. And I'm so excited to talk about it and rewatch it because I just love it for what it is and how fun it is. I wanted us to watch something a little bit more fun.
Yeah.
Next week, so I think it's fun at least.
I do too. 100%.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing with our found footage. But Mary Beth, who are we chatting with on Monday? Speaking of found footage.
So Monday, yes, we're chatting with Nick McNulty, who is the writer and co-director of the 2016 found footage film Capture, Kill, Release. But most recently, he's the author of a horror western called Skinning the Coyote, which is available wherever you get your books. And we are talking about Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the first time I've ever seen that movie, and I really go on a rant about Pee-wee Herman. I forgot how much I really went in on Pee-wee in that episode, now that I'm really thinking about it.
Yeah.
So get ready for that, because I really don't like that man-child. I really don't. Really, really don't.
Yeah, we have a lot of things to discuss with that one. But also because Patreon is open again, we have a new Fresh Wounds that will be coming at you probably in the next week or so.
Yeah.
And we are continuing our new French Extremity exploration with Frontier and then parentheses S. Frontiers, though it has an S. When I was asking Siri how long Frontiers was, because I'm gonna watch it tonight, it said the response was Frontier S is.
Carter asked when you're gonna watch Infested.
Well, we don't really have any. We don't have 200 reviews, Carter. So I think I'm going to be okay with that.
Carter's trying to kill you. You will shit out your skeleton. Literally shit out your skeleton. I know you're probably going to watch it out of curiosity, and, someone's going to tease you one too many times, and you're going to be like, I'm going to prove you wrong, and then you're going to watch it, and then I'm going to get a call from your roommate that you died of a heart attack watching...
Okay, live stream watch. I will need people there with me to watch this.
That's true.
I
will fly out to hang out with Terry to watch Infested. I will do that. Mostly because I want an excuse to hang out with you in person again, and I will use your terror as my motivation.
Because I don't... For those who don't know, Infested is we've talked about it on Little Cuts, or Mary Beth talked about it on Little Cuts out of... What was it? Was it Fantastic Fest? I can't remember.
Yeah, Fantastic Fest. Yeah.
Spiders in a building. Horrifying. Wreck meets spiders.
It's arachnophobia, but 10 times worse because it's not funny at all and not fun. Yeah, but it's gonna shit. But it would make Terry die. Yeah. So we're gonna have him watch it when it comes out. On that note, everybody, you've heard from us. We want to hear from you. Did you watch anything that we watched this week and have thoughts? Do you have suggestions for movies we should be talking about? Send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us directly on Twitter / all other social medias. On Twitter, I am at MB McAndrews, and on Instagram, I am at MB.McAndrews. I don't use Blue Sky. I'm giving up on that, so...
And I'm at Gaily Dreadful everywhere.
I can't be asked. I say that now. Who the fuck knows? Whatever. And then don't forget to keep the conversation going with us on their other social media accounts for the actual podcast. We are at Scarred Podcast on Twitter and at Scarred for Life Podcast on Instagram and Blue Sky.
And please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe. And like we said, if you want to help support us, our Patreon is back open, thankfully.
We are back, baby. Thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please stay safe out there. But most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.